Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for coming and welcome to Rondaxe's webinar of its proprietary software called SimpliDATA that automates, simplifies, and centralizes information, data, tables, and charts for an effective and easy tech transfer. So over the last decade, I would say, we've been to symposiums, we've been to conferences, we've had meetings, we've read papers, we've been a part of question and answers, panel discussions, all around tech transfer. How to make it easier, how to make it more efficient, some cases even how to get rid of it, which would be an impossibility. But anyway, we never really thought of diving into using one of our modules or even creating a tech transfer platform until we partnered with a large biotech that was already a client of ours utilizing our software. And they asked us to create a platform to simplify and make error-free as much as possible, limit the deviations, and centralize all the information so that their process of tech transferring internally or externally could be simplified. And so we created SimpliDATA, which you'll see in a minute. And what we came up with, or the why behind this product, is three basic things. One is automation. What we wanted to do is take the tasks of putting together visual diagrams, data, charts, tables, data, and information that I'll show you that it's associated with tech transfer and SimpliDATA management, and make sure that that is automated simply from the recipe build, which again, I will show you soon. The second thing is centralization. And what I mean by that is we've been a part of studies, we've seen from our clients and customers that a lot of the information that needs to get put together for a tech transfer is all over the place. Essentially in e-rooms, it is on spreadsheets from emails, it is in separate document management systems, it's even on paper form. And as Rondaxe is a CMC consultancy, we have been tasked to do this manually as a part of our practice. We know how long it takes. We know that when we developed this, we needed to put together something to centralize all of this data so that everybody can operate under the same assumptions, so that everything needed for that effective tech transfer is easy to grab, retrieve, easy to find, and we make sure that our knowledge workers are not searching all over the place. And the next one is communication. And what we mean by that is whether you're putting together the tech transfer from this recipe build, whether you're looking at discussing this internally between different departments with management, or whether you're reaching outside of the company to a partner that's an external CDMO, a vendor, so on and so forth. Again, everybody can operate under the same assumptions, communicate by simultaneously signing into this and taking a look at all the data and information that's right there. So that's the why of it. Let's get into the how. So what else we wanted to do with this is we wanted to look at, when we dive into the recipe, which I'll click on right here, we wanted to take a look at some things that related to the problems in all the information that's all over the place and looking for solutions to what a tech transfer provides. So plant fit, for example. So we wanted to take a look at the scale of operations, make sure that your equipment is requirements, and essentially, does your project, if you're an innovator, fit into your preferred CDMO's program? On the opposite end, if you're a manufacturer, does this project you're taking on, does it fit into this facility, in this suite, with this equipment, in our other facility, suite, equipment, so on and so forth? It's all right here. Also, we wanted to have a place to gather all of our materials, specs, methods. They're collected easy, which I'll show you in a minute, ready to view. We wanted to look at impurities in the log with a source fate control to support the control strategy development. And this is something that we previewed on LinkedIn, in which in our advertisements show you as far as a quality risk assessment or a QRA. What I'm going to show you in this brief demo is how to put together from 3 basic parts of the tool to start your QRA and eventually go into an FMEA. So let's get into it right now. So we chose the program, which is betaquilin, and we chose the salt crude over here. And what this is, and I'll click on the scheme again, that comes with every program that you put in. We have the ability to attach and put in the schematic here, or essentially get it from ChemDraw. So here it is right here, and let me explain a little bit about it. So it's coupled in a cryogenic flow reactor with a chiral directing agent preformed in a side train. The product favors 1-diastereomeric pair. The desired form is resolved by a crystallization as the benzyl asparate ester salt. There's lots going on here. You can see over here that there's a main train and we have side trains coming in. And we can definitely view this in the process flow diagram. But first, let's put a step together. So what we want to do is come down to any one of these steps that we have in here. This is part of the recipe build. And when you click on this, there's a little plus button over here that allows you to add a row above or below. And this is how we're going to put together the recipe. So we have an action. And when we click on an action, part of our database and our glossary is going to have these familiar words to you. So we'll choose the word add. And what do we want to add? Well, we want to add a material. Well, let's pick a familiar material. And let's go with acetone. And so we have acetone there. What do we want to do with the quantity of the acetone? Well, we can put in the units here. Let's just say it's a quantity of 2, and the unit would be, let's go with volume. And then what piece of equipment are we going into, right? Well, we're going to go into the R1. And then we can also add parameters. As well with the parameters, we can also add free text. But before I get into the parameters, how is it so easy for me to do a line or a step like that? Well, again, I mentioned that Rondaxe is a CMC consultant. I mentioned as well that we have gathered all the materials, put together an equipment list, a suite list, a facility list, and we have it in the database that's included. So if we go over to this section of the tool, we'll just look at materials. Now this database is going to be the local database. Let me explain that. So for this particular project, all of the materials that are only used in this project are going to be on your local database. If you click this over to global, now you see many more materials. Now, that does not mean global as a part of everyone else in the world's database. It is just across multiple projects of your own database. All of this is included in the tool. Why do we include it in the tool? Well, we include it in the tool because this is how you can pick these chemicals very easily and put them into a recipe. We have our database. We can help import your database. If you're an innovator and have your set of materials that have built your API, we can put that into the database as well. Therefore, you can use your own materials when you're building your recipe and it'll become part of the glossary. The same thing goes for pieces of equipment. If you do not want to use our assumptions in our equipment, we can add yours. And essentially, once you build these templates one time, it'll be there forever. And therefore, you can just build this as easily as I've built this. So we can click out of this for now, and we'll go back to the line. And now we can add the process parameters. So again, with these little plus buttons here, we can add text or free text. We can say add how, well, what do we want to do? Well, we can add slowly, right? And that types in just like that. Same thing goes over there for the equipment. We can add a text here, or if you see over here, we can add a note here. And essentially, this note pops up and you can write anything, as many letters, words, sentences that you want. You can even say, okay, this is going to be a hazardous material, in which this red triangle will pop up telling everyone else that this particular step is going to be hazardous. Now, since I didn't add a note, it didn't go over to the hazardous, but a red triangle will pop up there. So let's go over the parameters. So the reason why we want to put parameters in is because we want to be able to tell exactly what we're doing with this particular step. So we can add a speed to the unit, anything that you want to add here, and it'll come up in the parameter table, which again, we can review for the QRA. So now that we have this step in here, all we have to do is build the other steps. Again, we are working on something where we port over not only your materials and pieces of equipment, but we can also do that with your recipe. We can simply copy and paste, we can pull data over for you, or you can do exactly what I did, which is customize and create your own recipe here, which essentially is modeled after an MBR and EBR. The two other things I wanted to talk about now that we've built this recipe, the first one we're going to go to is the process flow diagram. So once you build the recipe out, this is automatically generated. We talked about automation in the beginning. The recipe is here. Step bombs automated. Equipment capacity, which we'll speak about in a later webinar, is automated. The Gantt chart, all about times, automated. Consolidated bomb, parameter table, which we'll get to, test, dispose, and our scorecard, which judges the safety, efficacy, and environmental factors to the process. But right now we're looking at the PFD for the recipe that we have. You can see where train 1 comes in. You can see all of the IPCs here. Here's where train 2 comes in, train 3, so on and so forth until you reach your end product. When we add something to the recipe, whatever that may be, whatever train that may be, that will go right into the process flow diagram as well as get automated in any one of these steps. Why is that important? Well, you go back to the recipe, you add a line, you found an error, you found an omission, there's a deviation, there's something that somebody caught. Instead of having to do all it over again, you simply add it to the recipe here and everything else gets automated. We also talked about the parameter table. Now, when looking at the parameters, they will all come up here. Whatever parameters are going to be put into your steps into the recipe will be here in this parameter table. It captures all of them. Along with that, what we haven't done in the recipe on purpose is we haven't added the ranges, which you can add here. If the pars and the nors are necessary to add, you add them here and it captures it. Now we're going to get into the start of the QRA. So we have a risk assessment here. So when we go right into the risk assessment, what we're going to do is, in what we have done with multiple clients of ours, have looked into, okay, in the start of a project or the beginning when we're discussing things internally, we have low, medium, high as far as what we want to do with each step. Which one do we want to look at? Which one do we want to make sure we review? Which one do we know is completely fine and we want to just have a low risk to it? We can assign those details there. If we're later in the project, terminology we use is normal, key, and critical. So we can assign these as well. And also with every one of these, we can put a comment into each and individual one of these steps. The reason behind this is when you start your quality risk assessment, not only is all the parameters here, but all of the risk behind it or the steps we need to calculate and concentrate on are right here as well. Again, anything that you put into the recipe is going to be automated here. Anything that you put into the process parameter will be saved as far as the risk assessment and can be exported to a PDF, a Word document, an Excel spreadsheet, can be shared with licenses, even read-only licenses for management and for external vendors, and it is all right here for you to view. This has been the first webinar and the first 3 steps as far as the Q&A of the tool is concerned. What I'd like to do is invite you for questions outside of this webinar so that we can take a look and dive deeper into the tool. We can take a look at the scorecard, equipment capacity with VMAX, and anything you're interested in, as well as batch plans and campaign plans with the tool. So for this first part, I'd like to thank you for joining us. I'd like to thank Alexandra for being here as well. And hopefully we'll hear from you soon and we can dive into the tool deeper. Thank you very much.